Good afternoon, I'm Janice, Mandla, Mattingly, and for my video today I have two guests, my paralegal Deanna Myers and my legal assistant Lindsay Kinsey. And the reason why I asked them to join me today is to talk about shared parenting and the benefits of shared parenting plans and the cons, the pros and cons of shared parenting. Each one of them do a shared parenting with their former spouse. At this time, Deanna's been doing it for several years and Lindsay's been doing it just for a couple of years. So we're going to start with Deanna, and Deanna, tell the court, oops. Tell our viewers the ages of your children and how long you've been doing this shared parenting.
My children are 19 and 17, and we've been doing the shared parenting time for 11 years.
And what schedule have you been on for those 11 years?
We've done a 1 week on, 1 week off.
From the
entire time.
Even when they were little?
Yes.
And how did that work for your boys?
It worked very well. It helped them. My oldest, at the beginning, I think he had a lot of anxiety because he didn't know where he was going to be each day. And so once we established the 1 week on, 1 week off, he knew definitely where he was going to be. And then Saturday mornings is when we switched, and it helped him feel more secure in knowing where he was going to be.
And Lindsay, how long have you been doing this shared parenting?
About a year and a half.
And how old are your kids?
They are 8 and almost 11.
So almost the same ages as when you started, Deanna. And so Lindsay, what do you see as the benefits, or what? Let's first talk about when's your schedule for the shared parenting.
Ours is the same. It's a week on, week off. We've been doing it since day one too. We figured it was the best for the kids, easier for them as far as school goes. It was just, we didn't want to interrupt their school week. Figured Sunday was the easiest day to take them back and forth between the homes. Didn't interrupt weekend. It didn't interrupt school, and it's worked. They haven't. I don't think school hasn't been affected. Sports, nothing's been affected with it. It works well.
How far away do you and your former husband live from one another?
About 5 minutes.
Indiana, how far do you live away?
About the same, a mile or two.
Yours are in different schools because of Hamilton Southeastern having two schools, where Carmel, you're in the same school, right? So Deanna, how has that impacted with you? They went to school with that school district, and how has that been a problem other than some transportation issues every once in a while?
Transportation was about the only, because they rode the bus from his address, but once they started driving, we weren't affected. But that's the only thing that was an inconvenience.
And Lindsay, your kids, can they take the bus from their dad's home, or does he have to drive them on his weeks?
I don't think they can take the bus. I think with his house, they fall in a different school district. They would be going to possibly Orchard Park, whereas right now they go to Carmel Elementary. Based off where I live, we're still using my house as the home of residence. So he drives them every morning to school, and then when they're at my house, either I'll take them or they walk to school.
But once they get to middle school, it'll be the same, if both of you remain in the same
Right, I
locations.
think even if, I believe he's looking to move here soon, but I think we're still going to keep him in the Carmel School District regardless of where he moves.
I once had a judge tell my client that sharing sharing custody, both legal and physical custody, was like staying married. Deanna, would you agree with that? Like staying married with regard to the children and levels of communication, those kinds of things.
It requires communication, but you're able to separate the two. It isn't a non-stop, and it changes as the children get older and they're more self-sufficient. You don't have that non-stop communication with each other, but we've typically done everything by email, so that it's a good communication tracker. Sometimes by text, or in emergencies when we need a quick response, we do it by phone. But it really hasn't been a non-stop contact.
Every day?
No.
Okay. Lindsay, what about you? Has that been about the same?
Yeah.
Do you Text, email, how do you communicate?
Most of ours is by phone or text. Yeah. We don't really email. No, there's no email. Like Dina said, it's not every day. It's if we need something right away, it's a phone call. Sometimes we have to go through our daughter if we don't get an answer right away because she tends to have her phone on her more. But I mean, I haven't seen any issues with getting a hold of each other. Paying for things money wise. I don't know. Maybe we're one of those unusual couples, that we haven't fought about who's paying for what, whose, responsibility it is for things, but it just has seemed to work out, I think. But communication, we haven't had any issues with it.
You've gone through with teenagers. Have you had your kids try to play one against the other?
I'm sure we have, but nothing to where it's been obvious. We've been lucky over the years in that they've never indicated, well, I want to stay with mom or I want to stay with dad, and then feel like, unless you do this for me. They've always done the back and forth as they've gotten older. There have been things here and there, but nothing extreme. I've heard of other examples where it's been worse. But.
Have you had to have parent meetings with your, and you've been able to work through face-to-face when necessary?
Yes.
Is that something that happens on a regular basis, or is that something that just is as needed?
It's been as needed. Usually it was with school-related things. If we were having issues, or sometimes if it was trying to get all three of us two and whichever child was the issue, on the same page, because he would hear one thing and I would hear another, so that's when we would come together, and that way the children know we still communicate with each other about issues, and so they can't do that to us, that we will eventually
Get
come
to the
together and right, so that
Good.
so that it gets resolved.
Good. Lindsay, have you had any problems like that with your younger kids?
Similar, same thing, whether it's issues at school, we've done the same. We will get together with the child and sit down and talk to them, and again, let them know that we still talk to each other, and it's going to be resolved together as a family. Let them know that we are still talking to each other. It's not me talking to him or her and then dad talking to him or her, that we're going to make sure that we agree on how to approach the issue and resolve the problem together, and it usually works out.
Good.
It usually works out.
Significant others and the input of significant others, has that been a problem? Lindsay, any problem in your? Neither one of you are married.
Right. No.
Not a problem. What about you, Deanna? Have you had any problems with interaction of significant others, step parents?
There have been some issues here and there over the years, but nothing that has prevented the interaction with the boy's dad.
So what you're saying is, there may have been some interaction, but basically you and dad were able to come together for the benefit of your children.
Right.
Any cons? Lindsay, any cons on your side of it from the week on, week off? No.
I think bottom line is just make sure that communication is still there with the ex. You can't, especially going a full week without having the kids, not knowing what's going on at his house, and not being there to make the decisions for a full week or anything. You rely on them making all the decisions and choices, which same on his end. He's relying on me making the same decisions and choices for that full week, but it's just keep the communication. I think that's key.
Is it hard to go a week without seeing your kids, or is it something that selfishly as a mom, I've heard many clients, and including myself, say, "Oh, that would be a long time to go without seeing your kids." Is that hard to do? Is it?
It is, and I think when mine were younger, it was the big technology aspect was still very early on, so that wasn't even an issue. But I think now, I mean, most kids have, or parents at least have an iPad or a phone to where there's a lot of FaceTime things going on. Mine, again, are older, and so they communicate with me. We talk a lot. They'll stop by the house if they've been at Dad's, and if they want to do that with Dad, that's never been an issue to where then we're still seeing them frequently. But early on, it was difficult.
I can imagine.
My daughter's FaceTiming me or texting me a lot, so it hasn't really been an issue. There might be times that it'll be a whole week and I'm wondering what are they doing, or I'll shoot her a message. Hey, hi, how are you? Just to keep that communication with her and let her know that I'm at least thinking about her. But so no, like Deanna said, with the technology now, you really don't go a full week without talking to them at some point.
So if you were to say to somebody who's considering a parenting time schedule that was shared parenting, and again, we have this whole overnights question that we always talk about, overnights and how that affects the child support. But what I've seen of you two, and obviously you've been doing it for the 10 years that you've worked for me, and so I've watched your boys go from little guys to grown men. It's just been incredible. But of that, I know from your perspective, and I'm sure for you too, Lindsay, the financial aspect of child support has got to be something that you considered. So is it, how would you advise somebody to go past the overnight credit on the child support to get down to what's really in the children's best interest?
Well, I think it's important that they have equal time with both parents. That I understand the boys' dad and I don't agree on a lot of things in each of our households, but I think we both agree that a relationship with each of the parents is far more important than any of that. It's far more important than the child support credit or receiving the money. It's the children need both parents. And so I think sometimes we, as adults, we're either angry at the other parent, and so it's kind of a punishment to them, or we'll show them. But you've got to think about the kids and what it is that they need, because that's a priority.
Good. Yes.
Liz, same thing.
I agree completely. It was never about money when we were doing it. It was what's the best interest for the children.
Yeah.
What's going to give them the most time with both of us. They're going to be able to spend more time with him. Both of us. It's 50-50. And even if there are days that have come up that, I've been away for training for, during my week, and he's had him an additional week. And there's been days that he's had something going on, and he'll text me and ask me if I can take him for a day that's not my day. Yes. It's evened out. He might have them a little bit extra. I might have them a little bit extra. But I think it's just, to be fair, I had they were away at their grandparents during his week. So I let them decide, I let the kids decide, do they want to stay at their dad's a couple extra days so they can spend a couple extra days with their dad, instead of taking, since they, were away from him for longer. And they did. They stayed at his house for, 2-3 extra days during my time. And that was to be fair to them, like Deanna said, it's think about the kids' best interest, give them the time with both parents, whether it interferes with your time. Sometimes things come up and it happens, but bottom line, I want them to have the best life growing up and, realize that we do still get along and that we're looking out for them. It's not about us.
And that's where the focus, if you keep it focused on the kids, no matter what you may disagree or no matter what you may not like about the other person, you just always have to look at what those little guys and gals need. And Lindsay, you do National Guard.
Yes.
So you're away for training.
Yes.
Doing Army.
Yes.
And so do you try to work around your weeks around your National Guard schedule?
No, we don't change our weeks at all. We just leave it how it is. And like I said, in the summer, I was gone for 2 weeks. One of those weeks happened to fall during my week, and he just kept them for that extra week. We didn't change the schedule at all during that time. There are weekends that my training schedule falls on weekends that I have them. Sometimes I will ask my mom to stay with them if I'm going to be coming home. Those nights, some nights I don't come home. So sometimes I'll ask my mom to stay with them so that I can come home and still see them. If I'm gone, I'll ask him if he can take them. So he'll get a few extra nights with them. But, no, we don't work around it. It just, because a lot of times that ends up just screwing things up too, I think, in the long run. And there's no way, since my schedule doesn't always stay 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it's not the same every month. It's hard to really plan around. I could have training 3 weeks apart from each other. I could have training 2 weeks apart from each other. So we'd be constantly flipping.
So what I hear you saying is that your intent with that is to keep it to 50-50. But if it doesn't come out to exactly square on the dollar or square on the day, you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Same thing with you, Deanna. I know your ex-husband travels some.
And we've been really good about when he would know about a trip coming up, he'd let me know, and then we'd suggest we would actually swap out. So if he was to be gone for 3 days, and we just kind of flip out the equal days for that following week, and it seemed to be.
And that worked all right. Okay. Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And Lindsay's